There he is. See him. See him. Look underneath the house. Oh wow. Hello.
Fresh ones.
Hello mates. You're greedy, innit? Jeez. Oh. Step up. There you go. You're getting it all over your face, my friend. Oh man. Oh mate. Alright, have some. I know. Right, I'm done now, birds. Fly away. Go on. Caw, caw. Go on, you sit down there. Go on. Bye bye. Shoo, shoo. Right, you.
Come on.
Wait. Go on, sit up there, man. There you go. There you go. Lots of honey and seeds and nuts and confetti and all of that. There you go.
Are you done with this camera?
No, but I wanna. Are you not gonna feed them?
Have you got it?
Hey, they're bashing the duck. Stop banging the duck.
He's got his mouth open.
How old is this one?
He's about 4.5, 5 years old.
Jeez, he's a big boy.
Yeah, he's pretty big. Calm down.
That sellotape is good, right?
Yeah, he's good. He's just a little wiggle worm today. Just a sec. You done? All right. Put that hand right under his armpit and that hand right under his tail. Awesome.
Oh, wow.
Just look straight ahead and smile nice and big for me, all right? 3, 2, 1. All right, now I want you to look super scared. What am I doing here? Why am I holding this alligator? This is crazy, all right? 3, 2, 1. All right. And then one more. Smile nice and big for me. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Wow.
All right,
Cool.
something from you.
Jeez. Why?
Let's take the sausage one then. It's the giant.
Right. We're going to fish ourselves a gator. Right, hold the fishing rod over.
I didn't even get a chance to see.
He saw.
Hang it over. It's gone.
Jeez. Very patient. Oh dear. Jeez. If that was my finger, eh? Oh, he got that really quick, innit? I haven't got a bite yet. Let me see if I can get some of the ones further back. Oh, too late. Got him.
Looks like it, right?
Nice pair of shoes, isn't it?
No, I'm good.
God. Oh, he got him. Pardon you. You got gas, have you? We got 3 left. Oof, oof, oh. It's in the middle. They'll find it.
Yeah.
2 left. Alright, let's do a double one. Oh no, I can't actually. I'm surprised they don't hurt themselves with this wire. Oh, he's got it. 1 left. Hello. All right, Usha, can you catch? Can you catch? Ready? Woo. Gone. Ah. Right, that's it. Dinner's over. Very pretty. Who's smiling?
So, who knows what we have here? You can shout it out. Go ahead. Very
Snake.
close guess. A python. It is a boa constrictor. Okay. So the only difference is that pythons will actually lay eggs when they reproduce, whereas a boa gives live birth. So we're gonna put her on the ground and let her stretch out a little bit. All right. If she makes her way over to you, don't be scared of her. You have nothing to worry about. Okay, so again, this is a boa constrictor. They get a nickname, the red-tailed boa. Their tail is always a different color and pattern than the rest of their body, and they'll use this to their advantage. It helps break up their pattern while they're in ambush. So being an ambush predator, they sit around and they wait for the perfect opportunity to strike at a meal. Sometimes this takes very, very long between meals, days, weeks, or even months, sometimes upwards of a year. So in order to speed this process up, in order to get a meal a little quicker, they're going to use that tail. So if they feel hungry, the boa is an excellent climber. They'll get very high up into a tree, and they'll hide most of their body up in the leaves and the brush while they take that discolored tail and they stick it out in the open on purpose. They'll slowly move it around like this as a lure. Okay, this is called caudal luring. Now, when a bird of prey sees that, they think they're looking at a little baby snake just the size of the end of that tail there. So they fly in with confidence, they land on the tail with their talons, they think they're about to eat an easy meal, a baby snake. By the time they realize how big the animal really is, it's going to be a little too late for that bird. The boa is going to grab them with multiple rows of recurved teeth. Okay, they are not venomous, they don't have fangs, so they have to hold that prey nice and tight. They'll use all that muscle going down their body to constrict and squeeze, and a few minutes later, they'll swallow the animal completely whole. Not just restricted to eating birds, but as they grow larger, they'll tend to stay more towards the forest floor instead of climbing up so high, to where they're more available to eating other reptiles, small mammals, and sometimes very large mammals as well. The females can get 15 to 17 feet on average. That is a very big snake, so at that size, they're capable of eating something as large as a white-tailed deer. All right, when this has been documented before in the wild, they will fast themselves after a huge meal, gorging themselves this heavy with a meal that large. They can go upwards of a year with no food after that. So they don't need to eat nearly as much as you and I do. Being cold-blooded, they're not always burning that energy constantly, feeling hungry 2-3 times a day. If they're not moving, they're not burning that energy, and they can hide in a tree, hide underground, hide under the dirt or soil, and just not move for months and conserve that energy, make a meal last them a very long time. You can see she's very shy. You know, she's going to try to climb underneath the cabinet here, and I don't want to have to lose her under there, so I'm just going to pick her back up before she does that. Now, we'll talk real quick about snake safety. All right, some people ask, how do you tell if a snake is dangerous? It's very simple. Ask yourself one question. Are you messing with the snake? If the answer is yes, it is dangerous. If you're not messing with the snake, it's not dangerous. Leave them alone. They want nothing to do with you. Snakes are terrified of people. Even the largest snakes on the planet, or the most venomous snakes on the planet, see us as a threat. For example, right here in Osceola County, Florida, a very common venomous snake we have is the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. This is the largest rattlesnake on the entire planet, right here in Central Florida, with records over 8 feet long. They get massive, okay? When you walk up on one of these big snakes here in Central Florida, they are very scared of you. They shake that dead skin on the end of their tail that makes that very loud buzzing noise. They're using that as a warning. They're saying, hey, back off. I'm dangerous to you. You're dangerous to me. We're both going to go our ways, and nobody ends up having to go through anything. So they use it as a warning, okay? They're not going to rattle their tail at a mouse or a rat or a bunny in the woods that they want to strike and eat. But when they see a person, they use that dead skin on the end of their tail to warn us, okay? Again, we are not on the menu for any snake out there. They're mostly eating birds, small rodents, and other reptiles. Alright, so if you see a snake, I promise if you give them distance and respect, they will leave you alone. Right? In the US, we still end up with about 3,000 venomous snake bites every year. That's a very high number, but 90% of those envenomations are to young men between the ages of 16 and 30 who are still drunk when they make it to the hospital. So it's one of those, hold my beer and watch this, bro. I'm going to try to capture this snake, and they end up being bit. Okay, just leave them alone, guys. Unfortunately, a lot of times the people being bit are trying to kill that snake, and in the process, they end up taking a bite. No matter what wild animal it is, if you're trying to kill it, it's going to defend itself. Not just snakes with venom, but any wild animal. So you got to learn to respect wildlife, and it'll leave you alone, okay? Now I'm going to walk around with Mocha here. That's her name. And I'm going to get real close for the front rows. Just a heads up if anybody's scared. Now's your chance to, I don't know, hide or something. But you came to the exotic animal show, so I don't know what you expected. So I'll bring her close for you, and you guys can touch her tail, okay? As long as we're not poking her in the face, nobody's going to get bit. But you guys can touch her back and her tail. If you change your mind, I'll bring her over to you, okay? She said, absolutely not. I am not changing my mind. But the scales are very smooth and sleek. People say snakes are sticky and slimy. I have never felt a sticky or slimy snake. Okay, their scales are made out of keratin. That's the same stuff as your fingernails right there. So very smooth and sleek on top of the fingernails, and that's what those scales are made out of too. You're thinking frogs and toads, amphibians, like salamanders. They are very sticky and slimy. Now snakes, on the other hand, that is just not the case. She might feel kind of cool to the touch. It's nice and cool in the shade. We got the fans on us. If I were to stand in the sun with her for even 1 minute, you would touch this snake, she would feel like a heat pad over 100 degrees. They're constantly soaking in the warmth around them. Reptiles, being cold-blooded, have to thermoregulate. So in the wild, if they feel very hot, they're going to get in the shade or go underground or get in the water to cool off. Whereas if they feel cold when winter rolls around, they're going to find a nice sunny area to lay in. And she is really just making a mess out of the microphone right now. Yeah, don't be scared of her head. You'll see her tongue flicking. She wants to smell everybody. Check us out. The only way this snake would smell your hand and want to bite you is if you were just petting a rabbit and you didn't wash your hands. She eats about 2 rabbits every single month. And I know that doesn't seem like much food, but again, reptiles don't need to eat nearly as much as people, especially with snakes. It's very easy to overfeed them, and as soon as you get a snake overweight, you shorten their life drastically. So 2 meals a month, 2 big rabbits, is plenty of food for her. All right, now if we have any snake questions before we move on, I got more animals to share with you, so I don't want to talk about her all day long. If you have any questions, now's your chance. If not, we'll put her away, and I'll grab the next animal. I think we got it all covered, right? Okay, very good. Okay, so here we have a cane toad or marine toad. Okay, they get way bigger than this. This is just a young one. They get about the size of a human head or a bowling ball. They get massive. Once they're fully grown, they swallow other frogs and toads. They swallow fish, rats, birds, snakes, small mammals like a baby raccoon, or anything is pretty much going to be food for a large cane toad. They swallow all their food completely whole. They have some pretty gnarly stomach acids, so they can consume literally anything. Now, we talked about them being poisonous. Those big shoulder pad looking things right there, those are those poison glands. If I were to irritate them enough, you would literally see the poison start to ooze out of that shoulder, and I'm not going to do that to her. I don't want to mess with her any more than I already am. But yeah, that is where all the poison is stored. Now, back in the 1920s, when these animals were only found in their native range, Central and South America, humans decided, let's import a bunch of these things, we'll bring them all over the world and we'll release them because they're having a lot of issues with agricultural areas being wiped out by pests. Mostly what's called a sugarcane weevil, this big beetle wiping out entire crops. And these are people's livelihood. They feed their family off their agriculture. So when your entire field, whatever you're growing, is being wiped out by pests, people were looking pretty desperately for any answer they could. And the answer they came up with, unfortunately, was to import a bunch of these toads around the world and release them into the agricultural areas. Now, at first, it seemed like a great idea. They're eating all the little pests. It seems like the crops are starting to recover from all the animals in there. And when they started to reproduce, they had quickly realized they made a grave mistake, okay? The cane toad can reproduce 2 to 3 times a year, and when they do, they have 20 to 30,000 eggs every single time. And now these little eggs will form into tadpoles and then into toads, just like Mama here. So once they start reproducing, people realize, oh, we messed up. Because they reproduce so rapidly, they were no longer just staying in those agricultural areas, they were spreading to natural areas as well, and eventually to developed areas where people are living. So when it came to spreading to the natural areas, all of the native animals we have, especially here in Florida, they were first introduced into Okeechobee County, where we grow all of our sugar cane. Well, they're now found in every county in our state. So they first were brought in, and all of our native animals were dying off because they're finding and eating these toads. They think it's just an easy meal. They don't understand that humans have just introduced these animals. So foxes, coyotes, different birds of prey, owls, snakes, even fish would catch one and pass away. So pretty much all of our native wildlife, including bobcats, lots of different alligators and crocodiles were dying off as well because they were eating this animal and pretty much passing away instantly after ingesting it. So they're very poisonous. If something ends up eating them, it's almost surely going to die. So hundreds of thousands of animals have died here in Florida because they see one of these things and they consume it. Now it's a really, really big problem in Australia. Australia, they have multiple species of monitor lizard and bird that are now extinct because of cane toads in Australia. They literally have a hunt for all the locals to go wipe out the cane toad, and they can never even put a dent in the population because of how quickly they reproduce. So they're very, very bad to have in the environment where they don't belong. Of course, in their native range, the animal is going to see the cane toad and think, I know that thing's poisonous, I'm not going to eat it, or they're going to be able to handle those toxins. Some animals in their native range are able to actually eat them. But for the most part, when they're introduced to new areas, it is a very bad thing. And not only in the wild areas now, even in your neighborhood. If you live in the middle of downtown Orlando, there's not much nature around, okay? But you could be walking your dog in your apartment complex and you could swallow a cane toad because they're just that common now. So you gotta be very careful. If you're letting your animals outdoors, never ever let them pick up any toad off the ground because it can very quickly turn fatal for them, okay? Now she really doesn't want to be held right now. I'm gonna put her back and I'll grab another critter for you guys, okay? There he is. Thank you, Cody. He's gonna pee all over me. There he is. Okay, so again with the splash zone, guys, if you get peed on, I'm very sorry, but they're animals. That's what they do, okay? So of course we have an American alligator here. Now, in the early 1900s, these animals were over-hunted big time. There was no real regulation to it. So, here in the southeast U.S., if somebody found a wild alligator, they would try to kill it for the meat and for their leather. Now, with no regulation to this, they were over-hunted. People would kill too many of them to the point where they were brought to the brink of extinction. Almost no wild alligators remaining, only a few thousand in total. Federal law stepped in and said it's now illegal to poach and kill wild gators. Once the law would protect them, they had a great chance to recover their wild numbers. People would face jail time for messing with them, and they decided to give them a break. So nowadays they've recovered. We have over 2 million wild gators in Florida. So pretty much every lake or pond, you know, every river, stream, whatever it is, we got gators in it. Alright, these animals have been around a very long time. They're pretty much unchanged their entire existence. They have the perfect physical design. So when they're in the water, they'll position their body just like this. The eyeballs and the nostrils will break the surface, but the rest of their body is still underwater. That helps them hide and hunt at the same time. So if he notices a bigger animal approaching him, this could be a person on a kayak, you know, a big otter that could eat this guy, a bigger alligator, whatever it is, it's going to scare him pretty good. What he'll do is sink underwater. They'll hold their breath to outweigh the threat for over an hour at a time. That lung capacity will only grow as they do. Really big 14, 15-foot gators can go underwater and go to sleep for the entire day, holding their breath the whole time. So they're very capable, and those lungs do grow as the alligator does as well. Now this one here, he's about 4 years old because he's about 4 feet long. You can determine their age by their length up until 6 feet. After 6 years old and 6 feet long, they are no longer growing at the rapid rate of 1 foot per year. They're growing maybe an inch every single year after that. So if you see a huge gator, it's a very, very old animal. The reason they have the end of their growth spurt after 6 years is because nothing really messes with a 6 foot plus gator besides a much larger gator or a very foolish human. So life's a little easier for them after 6 feet. Now as a hatchling, most of them do not survive. Okay, look at the size of the hatchling. In the tank right there, you'll see 2 of them sitting on the log. Those are already 2 months old. They've already grown a few inches. When they first pop out of the egg, they're 5 inches long. They're food for everything. Catfish and bass, feral cats, coyotes, bobcats, owls, hawks, snakes, fire ants, rats, and raccoons. Literally everything eats a little 5-inch gator. It is pretty much a free meal for all of our wildlife. Now, their best bet at surviving is staying close to their mom. Their mom will actually guard them for the first 3 or 4 years of their life. So until they're this big, the mom will protect them. Now, if they don't leave the nest after this size, the mom will just eat them. Yeah, you gotta look at it this way. Mom is looking to reproduce again. Her babies, again, will be 5 inches. Now, if she has her 3 and 4 year olds hanging out in the nest, her little babies will all be eaten very quickly by her older siblings. So the best way to clear the nest out is to eat those kids who haven't left yet, and usually it doesn't come to this. The internal clock, their natural instinct will have them leaving the nest after about a year, but there's always that one lazy kid who won't move out, and mom knows exactly how to deal with that to get an easy meal out of it at the same time. So again, it usually doesn't come to that, but if it does, mom knows exactly how to handle it. All right, now we'll talk real quick about human-alligator conflict, and then we'll wrap this up, okay? It's very easy to avoid gators in the wild. Never swim in our murky water in Florida. Okay, I know it's It's going to be a bummer for some people on vacation or some of the locals, but it's just the easiest way to avoid them. Stay out of that murky water. If you're in a crystal clear spring, it's one thing. You can see what's going on around you, but if you don't know what's underneath the water, what's bumping into you down there, you're just putting yourself in a bad situation, okay? Don't give an alligator an opportunity and he won't be able to take it, all right? If you avoid that murky water, you're going to lower your chance of having an issue with an alligator tremendously, okay? The other thing is messing with their babies. Mom's a great mom. She'll protect her babies like we talked about. So if you scare the little babies just by walking up to them or trying to poke them with a stick or whatever you're doing, they make a distress call. When they're scared, it sounds like this. Here. It's a little grunting noise like this. When Mama hears that, she is not playing around. If you're the one standing there near that alligator grunting, she's going to fly out of the water and chase you onto land. She will not hesitate to do this. They are great moms, and they will chase off animals that are way bigger than them. Bears, humans, an alligator 3 times her size. She doesn't care. She will go after anything that is a threat to her babies. They're a really good mom, okay? The last way to avoid alligator conflict is never ever feed them, okay? If you feed a wild alligator, you change their behavior. Normally, they are very scared of people. If you walk up to a gator, they're going to swim away and hide underwater. We hunted them almost to extinction. They know that they need to avoid us to survive. But if you start feeding them, you change their behavior. Instead of running away from people, they remember, that human throws food at me. So every time a human walks around this lake or pond, I'm just going to swim up to him and open my mouth and hope for the best. Now, once an alligator learns that the public is going to feed them, he's approaching humans left and right, he's then deemed a threat to the public. The state will send a trapper to come kill any alligator that the public is feeding. If you feed them in the wild, you will cost them their life. Please never do that, all right? Let's give it up for Fluffy. He did a great job for us.
Helping me is my boss. His name's also Andrew. Hopefully you remember one of our names, but I'm sure you'd guess what we're doing today is feeding the alligators, okay? Right now, we have been getting a lot of rain, so the water level is very high, which makes it a little more fun for us. So we're going to see some really good jumping behavior, we're hoping. That cable, that line that you see dangling over the pond there, we're going to suspend some chicken on that and see if they'll jump up for their food today, all right? With all that being said, are you guys ready to see some gators eat? They're ready, Andrew. We'll send our first piece of chicken on out there. Now, in our main lake, we have about 60 alligators and about 10 crocodiles in here as well. If the crocs decide to show up and participate today, we'll point them out, and right off the bat, getting ready to jump for the first jump is a little crocodile. That's little Queso. She's a Morlet's crocodile. They're found in Mexico and Belize. And we got a big mosh pit of alligators down here. They know what time it is now. They can see the food above the lake, and they are going to jump for it, okay? This jumping behavior, yes, very impressive jump there, but just a near miss. Hopefully we'll get this one with the accuracy and just a couple inches off as well, but we're seeing some great energy. High water levels, a very, very hot day, close to 90 degrees. That is a perfect combination to see some alligators eating today. Now, as we get later into the year and it gets colder, they pretty much stop eating. Yes, we got one down. Very nicely done. As we get later into the year, and early in the next year, you know, what most people consider winter. Well, Florida, we will get into the 50s and 60s sometimes, but during those temps, it's really cold for reptiles, and they pretty much just shut down off of food. If you come during the later parts of the year, it's not very exciting to come see the show. They just kind of float around and don't eat food. They will fast themselves for very long periods, sometimes upwards of a year. If you have a really big alligator gorging themselves on a huge meal, they go a very long time period without food at all. Alright, we've got another piece going out over the lake. Let's see if we can get another good jump. When you see them jumping, you might assume they're using their arms and legs like most animals would, but alligators and crocodiles are a little different. They're using their tails. So, their arms and legs are really just for steering left and right while they're in the water, where the powerhouse of that jump all comes from that very muscular tail. They swish that tail back and forth underwater, and it propels them up and out of the water just like we're seeing here. Now you'll notice, I'm sure you can already tell, they're not that accurate when they jump. I mean, that one made me eat my words. That was pretty accurate. But you'll notice a lot of missing as we go along here, and that's due to a blind spot right in front of their face. So they cannot see directly in front of them because of the position of their eyes. Right here is a blind spot. So when they lift their head up and they're lining up for that chicken, they actually lose sight of it, and they're really relying on their sense of smell. All right, it's not just as easy as spotting the chicken and jumping up and biting it. They really rely on their other senses as well. So this is a little more complex than just jumping up and biting the food. Now in the wild, they will exhibit this behavior as well. Different species of crocodile and caiman and even some alligators will jump up for bats and birds, even a bird nest that's above the water in a low branch, small mammals above the water on a branch, anything above their head is still fair game. You'll see this behavior exhibited in the wild. It's been documented many times, and it is a great way for them to get a challenging piece of food that's above their head. Now when it comes to jumping on land, they're not too great at it. Of course, again, all the powerhouse is coming from that tail. That tail can be 2/3 of their total body weight, and they do have to drag that tail around. Now, on land, you can see that alligator trotting around. That's my good buddy. His name is Little Sebastian. Okay, and he has kind of been trying to train us lately, so he knows once we start the show, about 5 minutes in, we'll get him there on the beach and we'll do some hand feeding, and look who shows up and beats me right to the punch. So he's kind of guessing what we're doing in our routine, so he's trying to beat us to the punch, which is totally fine. But when we go out there, we have to pretty much wait for him to do as he's asked before we toss him a piece of food, and we'll talk about that a little more. So we're going to go out there. Now I do have to be very careful with the high water levels. This croc is only 1 lunge away from the door. Okay, crocodiles are extremely fast compared to alligators. That is one of the big differences between the animals. So this right underneath me is a West African crocodile. I'm just going to toss him a couple pieces of food. That way when I make my entrance here, he has a mouthful and I'm able to get in here. Now Sebastian's probably going to try to jump the gun and run up towards me, but he can see this guy through the fence. He wants to take a bite out of this guy. Alright, so if he responds to his name, Sebastian, here, come on buddy. We'll ask him to pick his head up nice and tall, and if he decides to slow down a little bit, and he's going to try to lunge at me right now. So we're just going to let him calm down a little bit. Okay, this is good that he responds to his name, but he's just trying to walk through me and pretty much bully me for the food. So once he calms down, we'll be able to give him a piece of food. I'm just going to tire him out, pretty much walk around. He's going to learn over time. If I try to chase this guy, he's not going to feed me. But if I come over to my name and I slowly approach him, he's going to give me all the food I want. So you can see he kind of runs up towards you. We're just going to ignore him. We can't punish him. We can't negatively reinforce him. You can't spank an alligator and tell him bad boy. They don't learn that way. So you just ignore those bad behaviors. Over time, he realizes when I do certain things, I get fed, and when I do certain things, I don't get that treat during the training. So now that he's ignoring me, we're going to ask him to come over again. Sebastian, here. We're going to ask him to pick his head up nice and tall, and we're going to toss a piece of food right down the hatch. You drop that one, buddy. Come on. There we go. And you can hear that jaw pop. When he bites down on that food, big alligators, and he's not even big yet. He's still a little guy. Big alligators can bite down with 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of crushing force per square inch. They have the strongest bite ever measured in the animal kingdom. And he can see that piece that fell on the ground earlier there. Sebastian, leave that piece there. I got a new one for you. He didn't want the bird to get his scraps. But we're going to ask him to come over again and pick his head up one more time. Come on up here, Sebastian. Open up nice and wide, and we'll toss that. Okay, he's trying to bite the stick there. Hold up, hold up. There we go. We like to get him a nice hold. That way, again, he learns over time. I can't just chase this guy around and take food from him. So it is a training process, and over time they do become very good at it. He's still very pushy. He's still new to this, so he's very food motivated. And in the meantime, he still is coming up a little hot. But he's getting better. He's even better just from the few months he's been in here. He has come a long, long way. So while he's smiling for us, perfect time to talk about the teeth. All right, inside the teeth, they do have about, inside the mouth, they do have about 80 teeth. At any given time, they break them off left and right. So we talked about that very strong bite that they have. All right, because they bite down so hard, they're going to snap those teeth off left and right. So if he breaks off a tooth, it's no big deal. A few days later, he'll grow a brand new tooth in that spot. And they don't have a certain amount of teeth that they can regenerate. It is a never-ending, constant supply of those teeth. And through their lifetime, they can go through anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 teeth. Sometimes you find them just sitting in the sand up here because they break them off while they're eating this pellet. Okay, those of you wondering what we're feeding little Sebastian here, this is called croc chow. Come on up here, Sebastian. Alright, and you can tell he really likes it. This is basically blended up rats into a pellet. Okay, it's very good for them. Alligators and crocodiles don't just eat meat. I heard some of you guys saying ew when I told you it was made out of rats. It's blended up animals. You guys eat a hot dog, right? It's the same idea. Alright, if you've eaten a hot dog or a McDonald's chicken nugget, I don't want to hear you saying ew. This is very nutritious for them. If you only give alligators and crocodiles chicken breast, for example, without the bones, the guts, the organs, the brain, the muscle, the connective tissue, all that nasty stuff, that is the best part of the meal for them. So that's going to provide them with all the vitamins and nutrients that they need in order to grow and thrive properly. If you only gave them cuts of meat without any of that extra stuff, like chicken breast, for example, how cat or dog food is made, they would grow deformed, their teeth would fall right out of their head, and they would not live a very long, healthy life. So in order to give them the best diet possible, you give them entire animals or a substance that pretty much represents entire animals, just like the croc chow here. And you can see he's starting to get a little full. He's in that very relaxed state. He's already gotten 5 or 6 pieces. I don't want to overfeed him, but it looks like he's the only one who wants to come up on the beach today. While he's sitting here posing nicely, you can see all the big bumps along an alligator's body. Those are osteoderms. All those bone plates are used to protect them from other alligators. So these animals will fight sometimes in the wild. They can be territorial. When it comes to breeding season, the males bite each other to assert dominance. Now, if it wasn't for all these bone plates along their body, every time they fought another alligator, it would surely be fatal for one of the two animals. But with these plates along their body, they're able to protect the bite from being so bad, and it's really going to be able to keep the animal alive when they get into altercations with their own species. As they're smaller animals, before they're really fighting each other for dominance, it does help as well from being scooped up from above by things like birds. This little one here is named Gecko. I see you, buddy. You can come on up here. We're not just making their names up. These animals do look very different to us. So Sebastian has a very long head for his size. Gecko over there has a little underbite and a very wide tail. So just by seeing them every single day, we're going to notice little differences on them, whether it's taller eyes, different coloration, and especially when it comes to their attitude, they all act completely different. There is no other alligator in here who acts like little Sebastian when it comes to walking in here. You can see even though Gecko comes up on land, he's still a little shy for the most part. He'll eat a few pieces and he'll slink back down into the water, but they all have their own individual personalities and especially picky sometimes when it comes to what they're eating. So if we get a wild-caught alligator, a nuisance-trapped alligator, they may be used to eating certain things in the wild, whether it's fish or rats or rabbits. Some of them can be very picky and that's the only thing that they'll want, but a lot of them will end up being fine with this nice rat pellets that they get. They do like it very much. But they have taste buds in their mouth, so when he opens, come on, open nice and wide, buddy. You can see the tongue right there. It is covered in taste buds. They have more taste buds than you and I do, so they can, again, be very, very picky about food. Alright, their tongue is kind of fixed to the back of their throat. It's also known as the palatal valve. So if they're in the water and they grab an animal, water's not going to rush down into their lungs and drown them. Their tongue basically also seals off the back of their throat. That way they don't drown themselves when they're hunting for their food in the water. Alright, and they've been pretty good on the wire so far. We're getting some great jumps. And we've got one right above the water right now. A big gator lining up for it. Let's see if we're going to get this one pulled down. Little Gecko's coming back up for seconds. I got you, buddy. And you can see they do start to slow down a little bit with the jumping as we go along here. Alligators do wipe themselves out pretty quickly. After they exert big amounts of energy, they start to get very sluggish afterwards, and they have to lay in the sun essentially to rejuvenate themselves. Being cold-blooded, everything they do is motivated by the sun. On a cold day, they don't want to do nothing. When it's a hot day and we're feeling uncomfortable, it's 105 degrees out here, that is when the alligators and crocodiles are thriving at their best capacity. And we're on our last piece of chicken there. On our last piece, we like to mention something briefly. I know you heard me talk about this at the last few shows, but never feed a wild gator. Look what they end up doing. This alligator only approaches me like this because he knows that guy is going to bring me food. Now, if you're feeding a gator at your lake or pond, you don't want them to behave this way. You don't want them walking up to you with their mouth open, okay? They're going to be a lot more aggressive about it, if you would, if you're feeding a wild alligator. If you're teaching them to approach people, you're putting other people in danger as well. Now in Florida, once a gator has learned that bad habit of approaching the public, just like little Sebastian here, the state will send a trapper to come kill them on the spot. If you're feeding a wild gator and you change their behavior by offering them food, you're going to cost them their life in the wild. So please, never ever feed a wild alligator.
60 years old. And before the action of the show, just a little background about this guy, because a lot of folks will ask us, how did he come to be here? So Crutcher was originally a nuisance trapped alligator. And what that means is he lived most of his life out in the wild, and then at some point the state decided he was a potential threat to either people, pets, or livestock and had to be removed. Now, usually the reason for this to occur is because somebody has fed a wild alligator, which changes their behavior and makes them more dangerous. Crusher, though, his story is a little different. He was actually born in the wild, a little south of here, in Okeechobee, Florida, and an owner of a cattle ranch realized a couple of his little baby cows, a couple of calves were going missing. He found a giant gator in one of his ponds, and he was not happy because cattle are very expensive. So he called the state to get this animal removed. Now, luckily for Crusher, when the alligator trapper showed up and realized how big and impressive this old man was, he did not want to harm him for something that alligators do naturally, which, again, is very lucky for Crusher. Most gators captured through the nuisance program are euthanized and processed for their leather and for their meat. But he initially got sent to an alligator farm, and then when we heard of his story, we really wanted to bring him here to showcase and educate the public. So when he first arrived, this wasn't even built yet. He was moved right into our main pond with the rest of our nuisance alligators. But when we started doing our alligator feeding show, we had a problem with this dude. Not only is he a very big alligator, he's also a very smart alligator. He would remember about the times of day that the shows down there would start. And when we would go down there to feed the lake of alligators, he'd be there waiting. When the other gators would swim over, he'd bite them all and eat every piece of chicken. So we decided we had to do something with him and him alone. So we built this bachelor pad just for him. And to get him in here, all we had to do was open up this gate, call him in by his name, and he walked himself right in. And yeah, that's kind of what the show is all about. It's a different aspect to alligators to show you guys how intelligent they can be with a training session. So we'll get started here, but first we have to let him know that we have some food for him. He does not work for free. And the way we do that is with the Wild Florida Gator Feeding Call, and it sounds like this. So I do need some help from you guys, the audience. On the count of 3, I want everybody to make that popping noise as loud as you can. That will get Crusher jumping out of the water and ready to do the show. So on the count of 3, you ready? 1, 2, 3! It doesn't work. No, it works, but it works best if he knows you have the food. I just had to make sure you guys are paying attention, so I do appreciate you. Now, Peter is going to speed things up right away by hopping in the water, but he is going to use that call. Now, when he's underwater like this, Peter really has to be cautious because Crusher does not understand that we can see him, so he's being kind of sneaky. So Peter is going to ask him to come on over and pick his head up out of the water, which is what he's signaling for right now. Now, this is a process known as operant conditioning. It's a simple training technique that capitalizes on things that this animal would do naturally and then reward them with food. So we don't ask him anything crazy like do a backflip. We ask him 3 very basic commands. We ask him to come on over to us using that popping noise and pointing at where we want him to go. We ask him to pick his head up out of the water, and then we'll ask him to hold still. If he does them in a nice calm way, he gets rewarded with some food. Alligators do have a small brain. Even this size alligator, his brain is maybe the size of a walnut, but the portion of the brain responsible for learning, the cerebral cortex, is very well developed with alligators and crocodiles. So they are actually way smarter than people give them credit for, especially when it comes to getting their dinner. All right, now at this point in the show, you might be wondering to yourself, why? Why is there a Florida man in the water with an alligator? Well, we do a lot of this kind of stuff right here. This is known as desensitization, which is just a fancy way of saying getting him used to our touch. That way, say Crusher has an infection on his face, we can ask him to come over, hold still, and apparently put food on top of his head, like Peter just did. No, but we can apply any vet care like antibiotics without catching him and restraining him. So you saw Peter was touching all along his face, all the sensory organs, the eyes, the ears, the nostrils. He can even touch the alligator's teeth. Now that would usually get him to snap down, But he sits there patiently waiting on that food reward, just like that. So just like any other man, the best way to Crusher's heart is through his stomach. And alligators do have favorite foods. Crusher here really loves fish, and he loves chicken. And you'll see him kind of mouthing the food around. They don't really chew their food. They have a lot of teeth, but our teeth are flat because we chew. Their teeth are just meant to pierce into things and not let them get away. They do have taste buds, though, so you'll really see him savoring the flavor of the food sometimes. Now, he's made his way on over to Peter. And we showed you how that hold command can be used for important things, like if we ever have to do any vet care with this animal, but we can also use it to do something kind of dumb. So Peter is going to ask him to hold still, and he is going to offer up the hand to the alligator. At this point of the show, I have to remind the kids to stay in school and don't be like Peter. All right, but Peter's going to try to showcase the athleticism of this animal with a spin. Now, this is sometimes very hit or miss, but when he is motivated to do so, the fastest movement an alligator is capable of is a spin. So again, we'll see if he'll actually do it. He kind of got beat to the punch there, so we're probably not going to get a very good one out of him. But he'll sometimes surprise you. Even this 14-foot, 1,000-pound animal can move a lot faster than that. All right, Peter. So the hat is going backwards. Who wants to see Peter put his head in Crusher's mouth? Nobody? All right, so we're doing it anyway. Here we go. So for this, Peter's got to get the alligator to come on over, pick his head up out of the pool nice and tall, and hold perfectly still. If anything hits the inside of those jaws, he will clamp down with about 3,000 pounds per square inch. So here we go. He's in position. We'll give you a 3 count, buddy. 1, 2, 3. No, we're just messing with you. Yeah, our insurance doesn't let us do that anymore. Not after what happened to Christian. No, instead of doing something very foolish like that, Peter is going to put a hat on his head. Now, not only does this make for a great photo, it's a great testament to how well conditioned this animal is. I hope I don't need to tell you this, but don't walk up to an alligator and try to put something on its face. You're going to get your arm ripped off, but he's sitting there styling. That is even better than my dogs do at home. So Peter is going to try to retrieve the hat, and Crusher should just hold still the whole time. There we go. And a nice little jaw pop to boot. All right, but Peter's moving over to the ramp, so I think he wants to showcase one of the practical reasons for this training. As I mentioned a moment ago, one of the reasons we do this routine with this animal is that way, if there's ever a veterinary emergency, we can administer any health care to him without catching him and restraining him, which is very stressful on the animal and a lot more dangerous on us. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to simulate a blood draw. If a vet did have to come in here and draw blood from this animal, it's a little tricky with an alligator because they're covered in protective scales. So I'm going to enter the water. It looks like Peter's got his attention. I'm going to take my keys. They're not sharp or anything, but I'm going to get him used to the sensation of getting his blood taken by picking his tail up out of the pool. And alligators have a vein that runs on the bottom of their tail all the way down. In between the scales, there's some soft skin. So I'm going to take my keys, really kind of run them in between the soft points of his tail. And you can feel this. He's kind of tensing up, as you can see, but he's doing great. Again, we do this that way. If it's an emergency, it's not the first time that this animal has seen it, and he'll remain nice and calm. And he did great with that, so he'll get a reward. But we'll see if I can distract him at all. So alligators are opportunists. They will take advantage of a wounded or distressed animal because it's an easy meal. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to try to act like an easy meal. I'm going to splash around like a distressed animal right behind Crusher. I'll even stand right here so he can see me. And we'll see if he stays there focused on the training or if he spins around and tries to eat me. Here we go. You ready, buddy? Help! 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 I'm falling. I can't get up. Life alert. All right, he's just too good. So he's going to get a snack, and I'm getting out before I become one. Don't eat me, alligator. He's looking at me. All right, so I think Peter's going to try to showcase the athleticism with a spin yet again. We'll see if he can do it this time. He is going to be moving very slowly here. And okay, that was all we're gonna get. So he at least kind of did it, so he's gonna get a nice treat. But Peter just informed me we are down to our last piece of food here. So because we fooled you with the head trick, we do feel bad about that. Peter will perform at least one crazy stunt. He's gonna perform what is known as the kiss of death. He's gonna lean in and he's gonna kiss the giant alligator right on the face. So get your cameras ready. He's in position. He's going to ask him to hold still. And isn't that cute? Oh, he wants more than a kiss, Peter. So this is the way, no, don't use your tongue, it's here. But that's the way the training works. He does try to bite everybody that does this routine with him. He's not tamed, he's just more or less trained. So we wait for the nice calm reaction. And that's so cute. And that is not the weirdest thing that Peter's ever kissed. But he is out of food, so he's getting it out there. Big round of applause to Peter and Crusher. And before you guys get out of here, I have one last thing for you. If you're being chased by a gator, what do you do?
Run.
Yes, run. But don't run zigzags. We hear that almost every single day. It is a myth. Alligators are at their fastest in a spin, that left to right swooping motion. So by running zigzags, you're asking the gator if he's a lefty or a righty. Just run in a straight line. On land, they're only about 8 to 9 miles per hour. If you're slower than 8 or 9 miles per hour,
you're done.
Just trip somebody. That works every single time. Again, folks, that does wrap up the show. One last big round of applause to Crusher. He is the star of Wild Florida.